You're listening to The Osiris Munir Show, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hey, all my kindreds, how was the holiday season? Everybody all drunken with joy and happiness, I'm sure. First of all, let's announce our sponsor, Kevin Pike of Coldwell Banker, 818-571-1508. Call him at any time. He would be more than happy to help you. And then I wanted to give a shout out to the africachannel.com. Please support them. And now I want to do a little bit of commentary because there's always so much negativity. I got to watch the All-Star Deaf Comedy Jam that Shaquille O'Neal puts on, and I hadn't seen it, of course, in a while. So anyway, I watched it, and the comments were Tommy Davidson, Kevin Hart, D. Ray Johnson, and Cedric the Entertainer was the host. And the audience was Shaq, Nelly, and Ashanti, and Cat Williams. So the power of laughter, and laughter is very healing. So a lot of times, I know for me, myself, I love to laugh, sing, and dance. So whenever I get in a mood or I feel like the world is piling in upon me, I do the following. I perform for my dog. I, get in the mirror, talk out loud. You're beautiful, blah, 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 all the things that people go through to stay uplifted. But I will tell you a funny story before we bring our guest on. One time I was a guest, and the people performing were the Spinners, an R&B group from the 70s. Wonderful, they had a lot of hits, but just go look up the Spinners. And I think one of their records was Could It Be I'm Falling in Love with You. But anyway, I ran up to, it was clear, like nobody else was there. Here's my big, wonderful moment. I'm running up to the stage like, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to meet the man of my dreams. Every young girl wants to meet some star. Of course, they only love us. When you're naive, you think you're the only person in the world. They got millions of women and people after them. I run up there. There's nobody else around. I want to get to the stage where I can see the band, and I'm right up on the stage. One of the members of the band's eyes was going the other direction. And I said, oh, and I slowly backed backwards. I started moving back from where I came from without leaving the band. My eyes were clearly on the singer. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I don't know what happened. It was funny years later, because on Shaq Comedy Jam, Tommy Davis is always talking about the Hispanic community and how the difference in the languages sound. It's so funny. And I forgot the power of laughter and how funny things can be, things that hurt us. And we find, years later, things that broke your heart, you find a way to laugh about them. So I just would suggest that you go and do some laughing and some dancing and singing instead of listening to all the negative news about what Trump did and what they're doing, who's fighting and whatever. We've been trying to get our hands on that oil in Venezuela. And I would rather hear about people coming together, which is what our guest is going to talk to us about. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She has spent over 30 years showing people a side of the world that most of us only dream of. Some people have never left their front yard, their homes, their garden, whatever, and never seen anything outside of the community. Well, in the new world, we are global people. So some of that little local stuff that you used to do in front of your friends and family, if you're going to be online, don't do that. Don't do that. And even your numbers may be strong or whatever. Now we've got to go through years of having numbers and people come on our shows and things like that. So just remember that you're in a globe now, not a little small town or area. And if you're online at all, you're going to be dealing with all of these different kind of people. So this particular guest started an organization called WIF. I think it's WIG. WIF. Anyway, sorry about that. She is the co-founder of Entree to Black Paris. an award-winning travel expert and the woman who helps us to find our own healing through the power of travel and history and culture of the African diaspora in France. Her name, da 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 da. Please welcome the woman who makes sure that when we run front and center in Paris, we know what we're running front and center in front of. Dr. Monique Wells, welcome. Yay! I was telling her we've got to start meeting like this because we always meet online instead of actually in Paris, and I'm planning to go. Welcome to our show, Dr. Wells.
Thank you so much, Osiris. I am so excited to be here.
What a marvel to have you and a woman and a Black woman. I love it, I love it, I love it. I have to say it. I don't have nothing against other women, but my girls, I'm there. I love it when we make progress and one of us stands up and helps the other. Yes. What I wanted to know before I start off, since I start off with the comedy, how we need to laugh more and not be so serious about things. Is there a Black comedy scene in France and Paris?
So I would say yes and no. It's not big the way that it is in the US, but there's actually, or was actually, a Black woman named Shirley, and I'm gonna try to pronounce her name correctly, her last name correctly, Soulagnon, who had a comedy club here, a stand-up comedy club in the 18th arrondissement of Paris. And for those of you who don't know Paris, I say the 18th arrondissement. Arrondissement is the French word for district, and Paris has 20 districts. And Paris is sort of made like a snail shell, and it starts in the middle with the first, second, third, and fourth, and then it loops out. So the 18th is on one of the outer districts of Paris, and this Black woman was so awesome. She had a comedy club that operated for a few years. She had a comedy night where people could come and perform in different languages. She was awesome. And then she's still alive. I keep saying was, because she closed the comedy club. Someone else has taken it over. And she took off several years because she was burnt out. But she has started to perform again, and she's doing performances around France. And I've never gotten to see her perform, but she is, from everything that I've read about her, she is absolutely awesome. And one of the things that I was so surprised to learn was that when she was younger, she lived in the United States and she played basketball for Madison High School in Houston, Texas, which is where I'm from.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So she is in and of herself really awesome. There are Black comedians who are here and they do movies and things like that. But I would not say that
it's
this huge thing. I would not say that. But it's definitely there and it's growing.
So it's growing. So you could easily invite somebody like Shaq O'Neal, and some of those people over there. All they'd have to do is have some place to go and tell them you're going to pay them. They'd be there. It's not that hard. They love traveling. They go to all kinds of places. So let's talk about now, how have the dynamics of Paris changed since the new regime? We know a lot's going on with the new people, and I'm not judging. I'm just saying we are changing. Things are changing very rapidly, so we're trying to, keep up with everything while things are being updated, downgraded, whatever they're going. And you have a domicile in the U.S. That has changed how we look at Paris and how we look at other countries. How does that domicile support WIF, which is your Wells International Foundation? And you guys, Wells International Foundation, called WIF, WIF, it provides scholarships and cultural literacy to HBCUs, other universities, students that are, I mean, it is like amazing that this woman is doing all that. And I believe you guys have partnered with Barbara LLC, which is a travel partner or something you have. Is that true? Talk about that and
Yes.
how things have changed since this whole thing is going on.
So yes. So WIF, WIF is our acronym for the Wells International Foundation. We actually are celebrating our 10th anniversary, our 10th year of service. Well, actually, we're in our second decade of service. We celebrated our 10th anniversary on October 1st of 2025. And we have multiple strategic focus areas, one of which is travel and study abroad. So Osiris, you've mentioned travel many times since we've been on this particular interview, and travel is something that is very near and dear to my heart, and study abroad as well. So we have not actually offered scholarships to HBCUs, but we have served through partnership with this organization called Going Global with Barbara, which is out of Bowie, Maryland. We are bringing, or Barbara is bringing, and WIF is supporting high school students, African American high school students, travel to Paris. Most of these students are traveling for the first time out of the
Hmm.
country. Most of these students have never been on a plane before. They're getting their
Wow.
first passport and they are coming to Paris. And what WIF does to support is we provide a, a Black Paris walking tour so that the students can experience an aspect of Paris, which is, is one of the ultra European capitals and to me, the most beautiful city on earth, etc. But there is so much rich, deep, and broad Black history, culture, and contemporary life that is woven into the city. We expose these students to that, and WIF organizes college visits for these students so that they can envision themselves actually doing their undergraduate education abroad. And so we have relationships with five institutes of higher learning here. And depending on the student's interests, we will organize visits at two of those five universities here. We are working with the American Business College. That's one of the schools. We work with the American University of Paris. We work with Sciences Po. We work with Paris College of Art. And we work with Parsons, Paris. So those are the
Otis
schools,
Parsons, the design
huh?
school.
The design school. Yes,
Wow.
yes. And so depending on students' interests, we will contact these five universities and see which are the best fit. And we're actually going to be working in the future on doing some culinary work here. There's a culinary school called the École Ferrandi, which is the school, if you will, to train professional chefs. Everybody has heard of the Cordon Bleu, and the Cordon Bleu is a perfectly wonderful school. But for chefs who are really going the long term, they want to go to Ferrandi. And so we have actually opened up the door to um, organize visits there when we have a student group that is interested in culinary.
Wow. And are there must be a demand for it because you have opened up the doors, you say, for those students to come in. Let me ask you, how much are, because you are Black women, we're Black women, how much have women of color, and in particular Black women, been progressing in Paris? And have you been able to bring the two cultures of American Black women and Parisian Black women together?
So Black women in France they're doing quite well. We'll say in various domains, there are examples of Black women who are succeeding across the board. All
Mhm.
right. But it's similar and different compared to the United States because there is a special kind of racism here
Hmm.
that um, it must be addressed, and Black women are dealing with that every day and all day. It does not necessarily prevent them from succeeding, but it is something that has to be dealt with in the way that France deals with these issues. And it's much more um,
Common.
it's much more complicated here than
Mhm.
it is in the United States. But that's not to say that Black women are not doing fantastic things here. There are Black women business owners. There are Black women who are running nonprofit organizations. There are Black women who are succeeding in corporate. There are Black women in government. Um, we're everywhere. We're
Mhm.
undeniable.
So let's delve into that because a lot of people, I know I did, I thought there was no racism in France because in the past, that's where, Black people that were musicians, artists, all went to France and felt very accepted. We're going to talk a little bit about more of some of the artists you have preserved over there from American artists.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. In what way is it more complicated than in the US, even though we have a history of slavery and all of that here, very
Mhm.
ingrained that we can't seem to get rid of and move forward to save our life? It's just boggling to me.
Yes.
Talk a little bit more about that.
So the main difference, the crux of the difference, I'll say, is that compared to the United States, where slavery was a part of our the growing up of our country on the ground, in the country, on the actual soil that the US occupies today. In France, we have the metropolitan, well, how should I say? We have the hexagon. We have France, that is the nation that is part of Western Europe.
Mm,
Slavery was not practiced in this space. Slavery was always practiced elsewhere. It was
mm,
practiced in the Caribbean. It was practiced in the Indian Ocean. Okay, it
mhm,
was away from here. And so when you come to France and you see all these magnificent buildings and everything, Black people didn't build those things. Okay,
oh,
they didn't. They were not here. They were not here in large numbers, literally, until the 20th century. Okay. So for the longest time, Black people they were this sort of, I can't say imaginary, but people in France, in Europe, they did not have any contact with Black people. It
mm,
was it was French people who owned the plantations and who enslaved people elsewhere. That's a very, very small part of the population. Okay. So there was very little contact in in France itself. There was very little contact with Black people. Therefore, the ideas that grew up during the French Revolution and all, it was only the minority of slave holders who were against having emancipation for all people. So the French Revolution, the monarchy is decimated. France has its first government, and people are like, well, we have all of these enslaved people, they should be free. Well, there was a lobby. Lobbying is ancient. There was a lobby by the slave holders who were like, no, no, we need to keep these people working, et cetera, et cetera. Um, that's the really big difference between France and the United States. In the United States, the slave holders were on the soil, the slaves were on the soil, the enslaved
mm.
people were on the soil, and the enslaved people actually built the country. Okay. Um, so imagine that there are all these laws that had been put into place to sort of regulate how slaveholders could treat their enslaved people. and again, all of this is happening elsewhere. If an enslaved person were brought to France, that person could actually petition for freedom because slavery did not literally exist on this European soil. But the enslaved person would need to know that they could petition for
Hmm.
their freedom. And then if they were successful, and this has happened many, many times, then they would have to fend for themselves, as an independent person, um, and find work and all of that. So that was not going to be necessarily easy. Um, but those kinds of things were possible. And then we have slavery abolished during the French Revolution. We have it reinstated in France by Napoleon under the First Empire.
What?
And yes, Napoleon Bonaparte
Mm,
reinstated slavery in 1802 after it
okay.
had been abolished in 1794. And it took another several years, decades. It was in 1848 that slavery was abolished finally for good, um, in France's territories.
Mhm.
Okay. There was during the French Revolution, there was a concept that grew up. It was called universalism, and it still exists today.
Mm.
The concept was that everybody was equal. So prior to the revolution, we had the monarchy, we had the kings and queens, we
Mhm.
had the nobility, we had the bourgeoisie, and then we had the common man. Well, this universalism was like everybody is the same, there's no more class rank. Well, as time went on, universalism came to apply to race and to religious preference.
Mhm.
And so France, to this day, does not keep records on people's race, ethnicity,
Ooh.
or their religious preference. All right. So this is where the whole idea of color blindness comes in. So going back to what you originally said when you asked this question, African Americans believed that France was a colorblind society because when they came to Paris, when they came to France during the First World War, they were not allowed to fight with the American soldiers because there was segregation. So troops were sort of quote unquote given over to the French. And these African Americans fought next to white French people
Mm.
during the First World War. And they literally were in the trenches together and they were invited into French people's homes. And
Mm.
this was not possible in the United States, not possible at all. And they were awarded for their bravery, etc. So
Mm.
then when they went back to the United States after the First World War, they told stories. They told about their experiences. And they would say things like, you wouldn't have known I was black. I was treated so well, I was treated so well. And I got this medal. And that was the summer of 1919 was called Red Summer because
Mm.
people in the United States were like, you're not coming back here thinking that you're equal. We're putting you right back into your place.
Wow.
Okay. There were so many killings and lynchings after the First World War, that first summer after the First World War,
Mm.
because the US was like, you're going back into your place.
Isn't that something? Woo, I
Yes.
tell you, so much, so many things that we all have to be educated. We want to, I know a lot of you, especially the younger generation. Let's forget all of it. You can't. You can't forget about where you come from ever. You can stay in the present and live in the present, but in order to know where you're going, to be in the present, you have to know where you've come from. If you don't know anything about your history, how in the world are you going to tell your children, grandchildren, anybody else what happened? And a lot of
Exactly.
things, as time goes on, a lot of things can be erased or can be, something else put in
They
its
will be
place.
forgotten. They will be forgotten.
Hmm.
And what do they say? Um, what there's a
Take,
quote that I'm thinking of.
take your time.
If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Mm, that's a good one to have too, because that's basically true. That let me go from that question, and thank you. That gave me a lot of back, because when I went to Paris, I was like much younger. Not that not Yeah, I was much younger, but not in my 20s. I had to be like in my 30s already,
Hmm. Hmm.
late 30s even, I think. And I was treated like a princess. I had never had so many men talk about how beautiful, gorgeous, be my love, stay here with me, you can, I marry you, you be unite, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I met people from Poland. I had one of my instructors at Sonoma State University, which is where I graduated from in Northern California, was from Poland. I remember his name, Stanley Piasek.
Okay.
And he wanted to go, he's like, I will take you, your baby. I'll take you, my family, they love you. You be so happy. I said, I have never ever dated anyone outside of my own culture. And I'm a little nervous. I don't know what would happen. And I missed an opportunity. And
Mhm.
then of doing something different that would have probably been very culturally enriching for me. But I
Yeah.
did end up going to Paris with someone from the United States that actually spoke French fluently, had lived there so long he couldn't hardly speak English anymore. And I
Okay.
did get to stay in Europe, so it did come back around the opportunity. How did you, as a Black woman from Houston, Texas, of all places, and I'm from Texas, so we got that, our kindred with that.
Yes.
How how did you become a Parisian citizen, or do you ever become a Parisian citizen, or and then how did you meet your husband? I know he's Parisian, right? He's from Paris.
He's not from Paris. He's from the United
Okay.
States.
He's from the United States. How did you two meet and then form and he come to have for you to have the idea for Entree to Black Paris, which is really, really, I want you to tell people what Entree to Black Paris is, what it offers, the kind of donations they can make to support what you are doing.
Yes,
Uh,
yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about
Okay. All right. So, so I came here in 1992. I've been here 33, going on 34 years now. I came here to work for a drug company. My title is doctor. I am a doctor of veterinary medicine, and I specialize in veterinary pathology and toxicology. And I came here to work for a drug company. I met my husband before moving to Paris.
that.
I met him at the Alliance Francaise in the East Bay. I was living in Alameda, California at the time, and he was living in Oakland. And we both attended the Alliance Francaise in the East Bay, which was in Berkeley, California. We had the same professor, but we had class on different nights. And our professor had a dinner for his favorite students one time, and that's how I met my husband.
Wow.
And yes, and at the time, we didn't know each other very long before I was offered a job to come here um, to work for a drug company.
Uh-huh.
And I accepted that job. And I told he was my husband then, said, I'm moving to France. Would you be interested in coming? And so he did. He said,
Yeah.
well, he had lived in France before. I had never lived in France before, but he had lived in France for 3 years, years and years before. And he's like, yeah, he said, I'm sort of tired of this rat race in the US. He was living in Oakland and working in San Francisco. So he was doing that commute every day. And I'm sorry, he was living in Oakland and he was working in Alameda. He had worked in San Francisco previous to when I met him, but he was always commuting from Oakland farther out. So either across the channel or across the bay. And he's like, oh, let me think about that. And then he's like, okay. So we we moved here in 1992. I came in June. He came in September. He had things to settle, and we got married here.
Oh,
And we started the Entree to Black Paris business. We called it Discover Paris first.
I remember.
Uh, yes, and it was only at first, it was only self-guided itineraries. So we would ask people to tell us what they wanted to do, what they were interested in, and what they wanted to do in Paris. And we would write an itinerary that was really specifically based on those things and nothing else. So I was working full time at this drug company. And I said to my husband, his name is
No.
Tom, I said, African Americans, when they travel, they always want to know the history of Black people, where they're going. They want to know what's happening right now, currently. They want to know where Black people eat, where they hang out. Is there a hangout? Do they all live in one neighborhood? All of these things. Because you have this idea of what life is based on where you come from, and then you always compare it to where you go.
Exactly.
It's just natural.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'm going to write these self-guided tours, and we had 4 themes that I wrote on, and they were just sort of in the computer. And if people expressed interest, we could cut a little block out of one or more of those tours and just stick them in with whatever people were interested in. So as time went on, we got more and more and more requests for Black Paris, fewer requests for things that are more general. And as time went on, we also got fewer and fewer requests for self-guided walks and more requests for guided tours. And
Hmm.
I attribute that to the the growth and the acceptance and the sort of the internet becoming ubiquitous.
Mm-hmm.
The more that you rely on the internet, the lower your attention span becomes. You
Hmm.
know, people were just like, don't want to fill out this questionnaire, don't want to have to read while can you
Oh,
just take
nothing.
me? Can you just take me someplace? We're like, okay. After we figured out that that wasn't going away, then we shifted our business model to that. And we also rebranded because we got so many requests for Black Paris
Mm-hmm.
that it didn't make sense for us to just be this sort of generic name. So we rebranded to Entree to Black Paris in 2018.
Hmm.
And now the vast majority of what we do is guided walks and activities. And we do still have 2 self-guided tours for people who either they just we can't work out the schedule, or the tours are too
Mm-hmm.
expensive for them. So that's our least expensive sort of entry into the world here.
Wow, look at you all the way. See, you never know where life might take you, people. All the way from Houston, Texas to Paris, France. The woman has become a legend. She's like all over the place. I want you to talk about how the American artists like Josephine Baker, Buford Delaney, Sally Henson, I know, is in there now. How I know your organization has done a lot. You're on the news about what you've been doing. This woman is very popular. I know you don't know about her, and I'm begging all of you out there. Please stay in touch with Black people from other places of the world that are friendly enough to stay in touch with you. It's important. We don't know what
Yes.
we may have to do before this country turns into what it's going to become. So
Mm.
I'm begging you to please keep a link between yourselves and other people. Now, my family lives in Australia. I'm mad because when I wanted to move out of the United States, nobody knew. They didn't want to go. And now, what are you doing? It's so revolutionary. And now it's 20 years later. If I could tell you, I'm so pissed at them. And now they, oh, mom, we're moving to Australia. I'm like, okay, what happened when I
Okay.
wanted to move over there? Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
All
mhm.
my children, they're in Sydney. I've only have two daughters, Sydney and Darwin.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, they moved on, and
fantastic.
I'm so upset with them. I'm like, oh my gosh, we like, well, you at least have somewhere to go. But I want to know how your organization has been able to preserve such rich American culture of the people who took a risk and expanded their global presence by moving to little old Paris, France, or big old Paris, France.
Big old
What
France,
happened?
not. It's, well, so that myth of a colorblind France that we were talking about earlier was definitely a draw. And I didn't actually quite finish telling you about how racism is different here,
Please.
but it is 100% relevant to what I'm about to say in response to your question.
Mhm.
So the African American is one set part. We're part of the diaspora, of course, but France has a special way of looking at Black people that is based on the history that they have with the country of origin of those Black people. So if
Mm.
you are a Black person and you come from directly from the continent, or your parents come directly from the continent, there is one, you are in one group. If you come from the Caribbean or from the Indian Ocean, Reunion Island, or the places where France had that were France's slave colonies,
Wow.
then you are in a different group. If you are American, you are in yet another group. So Black is not Black is not Black. It depends on where you're from, or where
Wow.
your parents are from, or where your ancestors are from. And so the African American has a special place in France's heart because of World War I, when those black American soldiers who came and fought next to the French during World War I, those French people told stories about these black Americans, just like the black Americans told
The French
stories when they
American.
went back.
Mhm.
And very important, those African American soldiers who came here during World War I, there were a couple of regiments that had bands, and they introduced jazz to France. Okay. And so they became associated with this music. And France is, talk about, holier than the Pope or whatever. France, the average French person knows more about jazz than the average American.
I bet. I bet.
Okay. And they have embraced this music and they have made it their own, and they have their own just fabulous jazz artists, etc. So France has African Americans to thank for jazz.
Yes.
And so all of these things together make the African American special. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
France has a history of enslaving Africans and taking them to the Caribbean
Mm-hmm.
and to America, to the Louisiana as well. All right. They have a history of colonizing Africa. Okay. So those historical things are intricately tied to how Black people are treated here.
Mm-hmm.
So African Americans have a special place, if you will, in the minds and hearts of French people.
Mm-hmm.
This is why African Americans enjoyed this sort of this idea that France was colorblind
Of that.
because they have this special place in the minds and the hearts of French people. Okay.
Isn't that something? And a lot
Yes.
of the black musicians married French women. You know, they
Yes.
sure did. A lot of them, they when they do documentary, we don't have time to go into it because I want to hear more about what you have to say about how you're preserving the history of those artists. But a lot of them did marry French women. I probably would have been married to somebody from another country if I had stayed over there. Number one, it's not that. Let me phrase it in a different way. If you've never gone outside of your community and you never have the desire to go outside of your community, and you never have the desire to learn another language, to learn about other cultures, then in today's world, I am going to say this with all my heart and soul, with great deal of respect, you're crippled. You're going to be crippled. You're going to be crippled in the future. It's just not the same little old bitty world like it used to be. And I noticed, I'm a Buddhist. I've been around Asians for years now, almost 45 years. And it is probably one of the most organized societies of behavior and discipline I've yet to see over here in the US, which is why I like a lot of the things they do. In your quest, Dr. Wells, to bridge the gap between the cultural literacy of France and the US, what have been some of the techniques that you've had to do, including the preservation of historical US artists, like I mentioned in the beginning of the question?
So what we do is we tell stories. So we talk about, on our walking tours, we talk about how these African American people, and we do talk about other Black people on our tours as well, but we started out based in African American history, culture, and contemporary life here. And as the business has grown, we have expanded to include all people from the African diaspora in our tours. Okay. But you start with what you know. And just telling the story that I just told about how these soldiers fought next to white French men, were welcomed into people's home. These, and of course, when you are this close or that close to people, you absorb a little bit of each other's culture. You see, okay, we do this differently. Oh, that's so surprising. I wouldn't have done that. We do it this way. Well, it doesn't mean that you're rejecting the other. You're learning. You're always learning. If you have half an open mind and half an open heart, even if your mind and heart is closed, just proximity, forced proximity, is you're going to have to absorb something. You're going to have to. Okay, so if you have an open mind and heart, imagine how much more you're going to absorb. And so people like Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker came over here at the age of 19. She did not speak French. She went on stage because of the set of circumstances that allowed her to be the star of the final, they call vedette. I can't even remember what the name of it is in English, but you have these different acts. The final act, that's the word. Catapulted into stardom overnight. She had people at her beck and call. Men throwing themselves at her, throwing money at her. Women dying to look like her. Okay. She became an icon. You have Black visual artists coming over not only after the First World War, but also after the Second World War, because they are able to express their artistic vision without being put into a box. In the United States, if you were a visual artist, there were only certain things that you would be allowed to paint. Okay. If you weren't painting something that represented Africa, or if you weren't painting something that portrayed domesticity, domestic life, servitude, then no one was going to look at your work. Here, you could paint anything. You could paint any kind of people. You could paint any kind of scenes. You could paint abstract. You didn't have to represent anything. And that was okay here. Okay. So we talk about stories, and we are geography based in the sense that our walks are tuned to a specific geographical area within the city.
Mm-hmm.
Americans don't really like to walk all that much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're going to walk, if you're going to do a walk and keep people's attention, again, the internet has sapped our attention span. We have to build a story that fits into a geographical area that's coherent and that is not going to tire people out too much.
Mm-hmm.
So we have walks that are based on themes, like the first 4 walks that we did were Black Paris after World War II. We did the grandest of avenues, which is on and around the Champs-Élysées. That's the big avenue where the Tour de France ends and the July 14th parade is. We have a walk in the Montmartre area, which is where we had these jazz musicians living between the First and Second World Wars. And we have a walk in the Montparnasse area, which talks about the visual artists, the painters and the sculptors and the woodcutters and those things. And we expanded from there. We started to do walks that are focused on an individual, like Richard Wright, like James Baldwin, like Josephine Baker, like Buford Delaney. We have 2 walks on Buford Delaney.
Oh, wow.
One,
Buford.
Buford, yes, my heart. And during these walks, we talk about how these people interact with this environment and how they influence French culture and how French culture influenced them. And it's all stories.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to fill your head with dates and, we're talking about such and such a place. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is who came to visit here. Or this is who the person who the walk is about visited here. And why did they visit? And what happened as a result of that visit?
Wow.
It's stories. It's all stories.
That's beautiful.
And I really feel that it is. And in 2020, we started a collaboration with WIF. So Entree to Black Paris and WIF came together to create a program under WIF called Entree to Black Paris Cultural Awareness. And that is the program through which we work with Going Global with Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
And we work with other organizations as well. In 2024, we had the pleasure of welcoming middle school students from Gordon Parks Academy in Kansas.
Yes.
They came to Paris to walk in the footsteps of Gordon Parks.
Oh.
And we did a walking tour. So the grandest of avenues is our Champs-Élysées tour. But we sort of modified that and customized it because Gordon Parks spent a lot of time in that area. He worked for Time Life and he took loads of photos in that area. So we customized the walk to make it Gordon Parks centric, if you will. And we organized an event where these middle school students got to meet middle school students from Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to go around and do fashion photography on the streets of Paris.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
And they actually got to compare photos, and the winner got a camera.
Oh.
So these are the kinds of things that we do.
Mm-hmm. This is beautiful. We have run out of time. Unfortunately, we always do. As soon as it gets all deep and everybody starts expounding on their knowledge, revisiting things, we run out of time. I want you to say to everyone out there how to get in touch, how to donate to WIF and Entree to Black Paris Cultural division of that organization. And I want you to give us your social media tags, how we can stay in touch. I'm very grateful that I can always find you. No, you're both really busy. Thank you.
Yes.
But anyway,
Yes.
so tell us that before we go.
All right. So the most important thing is how to donate. As I said, WIF is celebrating its 10th anniversary year. We are in our second decade of service. We have some magnificent things that we're going to be doing that focus on travel and study abroad. And so we would love to receive your donations. And so if you go to the website, wells.internationalfoundation.org/donate, it is very
Okay.
simple.
Okay.
wells.internationalfoundation.org/donate.
Donation.
You will be taken to our page. It says everyday giving. There are, all the different, there's like 6 different amounts that you can give, or you can write in your own amount.
Okay.
And then where it says, there's a little drop down where you can say you want this to go to travel and study abroad.
Okay.
But we're happy that, we want donations that are as unrestricted as possible so that we can have the flexibility to do with
We want you. What she said.
the donations what we
Mhm.
need to do, so that we can support travel and study abroad. So
Mhm.
just go again, wells.internationalfoundation.org/donate. And in order to reach me, the best thing to do is to send me an email, actually. We are on social media. We have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram. I'm not on Instagram. I don't look at Instagram. I look at Facebook.
Okay.
So you can find me at, um, um, it's, see, I never look at it, so I have to
Wells
tell you.
International. It's
So,
okay.
for Entree to Black Paris, we are facebook.com slash
Mhm.
Entree to Black Paris.
Okay. There
For
we
the
go.
Wells International Foundation, we are facebook.com slash Wells International
Mhm.
Foundation.
Okay.
So it really is easy,
Okay.
as long as you can spell our name. So Entree to Black Paris is ENTREETO Black
Paris.
Paris.
So you guys, again, before we go, wells.internationalfoundation.org/donation to give to this lovely,
Donate,
beautiful woman.
donate,
Donate.
donate.
Donate. The word donate after the / And then
Yes,
Entree to Black Paris is ENTREE2TO Black Paris.
yes.
So, that's how you can find her on Facebook. She doesn't have time to be all over the internet like a lot of people, but, she is very busy. So just remember that. And we can't thank you enough for coming on to the show.
My
Don't
pleasure.
forget about me, Osiris_Munir the painter on IG. If you Google my name, Osiris, OSIRISMUNIR last name, I will pop up on Google. I'm everywhere, all over the place, all at the same time. I don't even
Yes.
know how I do it. I guess I get up and do things in my sleep and travel to other places, but people seem to see me in the most inconspicuous places.
Hmm.
And don't forget to support our LA Talk Radio, Sam Hassan, who helps me bring this show to you every week on time in the best professional way we can. I can't thank him enough. That's my man, I tell you. Not no disrespect to his wife, but just saying, he's very supportive of what we're doing here. So we can't thank him enough. And also, I love you. I like you. I like you for everything that you do, what you stand for. Look at this woman. How can you not like her? Like and love. I love you for being who you are, for
Thank
standing
you.
strong, going through the obstacles, the adversities, whatever you need to reach your goal. Don't forget, never give up. Don't
Never.
ever give up. I don't care if you're 75, 85. I just read about a woman, 81 years old. She's famous, who joined, she just passed away. Valad, I think her last name is, a famous model who joined, got signed to IMG at age 81. She's that badass. So if you're badass, it
Oh,
doesn't matter what age you are. You are there.
wow.
You're
That's it.
always popular. But I think
That's
her
it.
name was Valade, Vallade was the last name or something like that. But she just passed away in 2025. So
Okay.
look for her. Again, don't forget to smile. It works wonders. And thank our wonderful guest, Dr. Monique Wells. I cannot thank you enough. Thanks for always being there to support me. And I'm glad we have a way to get the word out about you and what you're doing over there. Okay,
Thank
and don't
you
forget
so
to
much.
smile. And I love you and love you.
Love
And
you
we will
back.
see you next week.
All
Bye
right.
bye. Kisses.
You're listening to The Osiris Munir Show, only on LA Talk Radio.